Afternoon. We'll continue our airspace review. This is module 5. You've seen this before. There's for airspace between 15 and 25% of the exam, of the FAA written exam, will be on airspace. But part of the airspace questions will fall under operations, airport procedures, etc. So it may be considerably more than 25%. Airspace is pretty important to the FAA, granted. So this is the sort of the general statistics for the knowledge exam. Remember this graphics from our concept and National Airspace System classes. This should be a familiar graphic to you. Just a reminder again of the different kinds of airspace in the National Airspace System. Remember that as we come to these test questions, that you will have a legend in the test supplement that comes with it, so you can refer to that to answer some of the questions. However, there is 60 questions and a limited amount of time. You really prefer not to have to look up every answer. But if you need to do that, as a reminder, and as we've talked about before, there's when you take the written test, you want to mark the questions that you're sort of not 100% sure that you got the right answer, so you can go back again when you have, at the end of the test, go back and just verify that you got the question right. Use the whole amount of time allowed to you to take the written test to review the questions you've had, because as we all know, we can read a question and not quite understand the question and snap to an answer, and often there will be a question that there will be a logical sounding answer that's wrong. So remember that particular tip. These are the memory items to help you with these airspace levels. A, B, C, D, and E airspace are controlled. A stands for altitude, that's that high altitude sector. And B for big airports like Atlanta, San Francisco, Washington, New York. Crowded, C is for crowded airspace, got a control tower. D, dialogue, you need to talk to somebody to get permission. Everywhere else that's controlled airspace is E. And G airspace is uncontrolled airspace. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, this chart again is just a neat thing to look over. You can't, I told you before to take a picture of this on your cell phone so you can use it to study. That's great, but you can't use it to take the written test. So, but again, just as a review, Class B, solid blue line, Class C, solid magenta line, Class D, dash blue line, Class E with an airport, surrounding an airport is from the surface, dashed magenta line is that Class E airspace. Class E without the airspace is that gradient blue or magenta blue gradient line, but not touching the surface, and Class G is that from the surface to the bottom of the Class E without an airport. Then we have all these other special airspace areas, prohibited, restricted. Prohibited and restricted you're not allowed to fly into without permission. However, the restricted areas on the top of the chart will list times of active times, and if it's not active, then you can use it. Also, contact information. So here we have a couple of sample questions from the written test. Time critical information on airports and changes that affect the National Airspace System are provided by notices to airmen, right? Pause and answer the question. FAA publications that provide the aviation community with basic flight information and air traffic control procedures for use in the National Airspace System in the United States is the A, Aeronautical Information Manual, B, Chart Supplement US, C, Advisory Circular Checklist. Obviously it's A. An Aeronautical Information Manual is that recommended procedures and basic flight information for air traffic control procedures. Chart Supplement US is the one that you use to find specific things about an airport. You have some information on the sectional chart, but the Chart Supplement US has very detailed information about airports, runway lengths and communication and fuel availability, all those things. Advisory circulars, no, that can't be right. So again, when you answer this question, you can eliminate C because that doesn't even make sense. It might be A or B, maybe, but Chart Supplement, we know that's just about airports. There's another question. Refer to figure 52. By the way, you should all have a copy of the testing supplement at home, so you can refer to this. Go to 52. What special conditions do remote pilots need to be on the lookout while operating near Lincoln Airport? And figure 52 has a picture of a chart supplement US, and it specifically mentions birds in the vicinity, except it's abbreviated, so VCT is vicinity, birds in vicinity, right? Here's another question. The lateral dimensions of Class T airspace are based on the number of airports? No, Class T airspace is for a specific airport. 5 statute miles from the geographic center of the primary airport. Primary airport is the confusing thing. No, it's not. There's only one airport. It's not a primary airport. So it's got to be number C. Instrument procedures for which the controlled airspace is established, right? You have those extensions for instrument approaches. Here's another one. Go to the testing supplement, refer to figure 26 area number 5. So you locate that area. The airspace overlying and within 5 miles of Barnes County Airport is, so Class D, Class E, or Class G. So I'll give you a second to look that up. All right. Obviously, it's Class G airspace from the surface up to but not including 700 feet. That's where area 5 is. Magenta, right? Magenta area, magenta shaded area. Inside is 700 feet and above. And outside the shaded area is 1,200 feet and above is controlled airspace. Refer to figure number 75, airspace surrounding the Gila Bend Air Force Base. Area 6, by the way, is classified as D airspace. Refer to figure 8. What does the blue shaded lines indicate through the sectional? Victor Airways. Just running through some sample questions from the written test. Which publication contains an explanation of airport signs and markings? Take a guess. Yep, you're right. Aeronautical Information Manual. Sure. That's where we find all of those, all that kind of information. Refer to 25 Area 4. What's the base of the Class B airspace over Hicks Airport? So pause the video if you need to. Look that over, and you will find that it's 4,000 feet MSL. That's the base of the Class B airspace over Hicks Airport. Remember, it's 4,000 feet, then a slash, and then the top of the airspace is the other number above it. Refer to figure 20, area 2. What should be aware of when operating within the vicinity of Lake Drummond? That's a VFR checkpoint. So if it's a checkpoint, it may be a lot of aircraft flying over that point so they can call the tower and tell them where they are, a location indication. So maybe high intensity of air traffic. I noticed that's already been bolded out, so that wasn't much of a challenge for you, but that's good. Okay, figure 78. You've been hired to fly your UA to inspect train tracks from the town of Hinton to the town of Winnebago. You'll be able to conduct this flight without contacting ATC. Okay. Sounds really complicated, but no, you just find the chart. You have to find those 2 locations. That's why I'm putting this on here, so you can find it now, and then maybe when you take the test, you'll go, oh, I know where they are, because it's sort of hard to find. It was hard for me to find Hinton and then Winnebago. It took a while to do that. What a waste of time. Let's not waste time. When you get ready to do the test, you've already known about this question. Now remember, there's 1,000 or so questions out there that we know of. You may not get this question. There's a lot of questions you might not get, but some of the more difficult ones I'm trying to include here. So by now you should have had time to pause it and think this through, but if you didn't bother to do that, there's the answer. They're telling you that you'll have to pass through Delta Airspace. And if you'll notice, there's a big airport in between those 2 towns. So, you're not going to be able to fly directly. You'd have to fly around or get permission. Want information about operating in an MOA along your planned further flight? Where can you find the information about operating in an MOA along your planned further flight? It's actually in the sectional chart on the top. That strip across the top gives you information about that. Figure 26, Area 3. What type of flights are being conducted as indicated by IR678? Okay, remember the IR? So two of the questions are already eliminated. Two of the answers, rather. B and C, it can't be VFR routes because it says IR. IR is military training route. So all the rest of the answers are irrelevant. The typical outer radius of a Class C airspace, 20 miles. Memorize it. Refer to figure 23. What's the maximum altitude you're permitted to fly when inspecting the high-intensity tower 6 miles southwest of the Havana Hilton Head Airport? Okay. Several clues to help you. It says inspecting the high-intensity towers, plural. So we're looking for more than one tower. If you want to know how far 6 miles is, there's a scale on the side of the chart. It'll tell you if you want to measure that out. Remember that we find the top of the tower in above ground level, right? So then we add 400 feet above ground level to find the highest altitude. Now, there's two answers that give MSL, so that's a possibility now. So we have to look at the MSL as well and add 400 feet to find an MSL altitude. And that's exactly what they're asking for. So the B can't be right because the top of the tower plus 400 feet above ground level doesn't add up. So it's above mean sea level. So this is a trick question. Yes, I get it. If you don't understand it, we'll have to sit down in class and talk about it. Just to remind me to do that. Or try to puzzle it out yourself. It's not totally impossible to figure out. It's just one of those trick questions. There's not very many of them, but there are occasionally going to be some kind of a tricky kind of question there where you have to try to figure out. And what they're testing here, the FAA is not being capricious here. They're trying to test your knowledge of the concept, right? Yeah, you can memorize all 1,000 questions if you want. They don't want that. They don't want you to memorize, and that's why they changed questions as well. They don't want you memorizing them as much as logically thinking through that. The process of how do we get that? What's the difference between AGL and MSL? You need to understand that. And we have talked about that. All right, a little more complicated essay kind of question here. Your surveying company is a title sponsor for a race team at the Indianapolis 500. To promote your new aerial surveying department, you decide to video part of the race using a small unmanned aircraft. The FAA has issued a TFR for the race in the area you plan to fly. So in this situation, let's see, A, you may fly your drone on the TFR since your company is sponsoring the team. No, that's obviously wrong. B, the TFR applies to all aircraft. You may not fly in the area without a certificate of waiver or authorization. Possible. C, flying your drone is allowed if you notify all non-participating people of the closed course small unmanned aircraft operation. What? You've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. It's got to be B. Yeah. So again, process of elimination. Even if you were to just sort of like, I'm not positive. Let's just go back to this question. But B, I think B's right, but maybe you might want to wait till the end of the test. If you're not sure this kind of question, come back to it later and go, yeah, more I thought about it. Yeah, got to be B.